Good morning. Thank you for joining today's session on free OpManager training series. Before we start, I would like to get a quick confirmation from you all. If you can hear me well and see the presentation slides, please comment using the webinar chat panel saying yes. So let us wait for a couple of confirmation and then we can get started. All right. As many of you have confirmed, we are good to go. Let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Suresh Bhagwati, Evangelist for Manage Engine IT Operations Suite. I'm with Manage Engine for the past 10 years. Before I ended up in this role, I was working as a support engineer with OpManager technical team and helped customers and prospects around the globe to make best use of OpManager in their organization. So with all this experience, I'm here doing a 5-part free OpManager training series. And in the first part, discovery and classification, we discussed about the different ways of getting your inventories added to OpManager and how to apply the filters and how to associate the rule engine task to automate the jobs that you would need to do after a device is discovered, and also how to enable the auto discovery so that a device that's added to the network, activated to the network on a later date, will be discovered by OpManager automatically. And in the second session, monitoring server performance, we discussed about monitoring the critical performance metrics of servers. That includes virtual servers, Hyper-V, Zen server, and so on. And in the last topic, monitoring network performance, we discussed about monitoring the key performance metrics for network devices like routers, switches, firewalls, and monitoring the interface bandwidth utilization, monitoring the WAN and VoIP links. And also we discussed some of the troubleshooting tips on what to do when a device is not collecting the performance data for the specific device. And in today's session, we're going to talk about the effective fault management and IT automation. So now we have set up OpManager, we have discovered devices, we have added servers, network devices. Now we are going to wait and see how to monitor and how OpManager identifies a fault and notifies that through an email or logs a ticket in your help desk portal, and when it finds out an alert, and how it takes the corrective actions, how we can automate that with using the workflow IT automations. And next week we're going to cover network maps, reports, and best practices. More importantly, the recorded version of this webinar will be emailed to you within 24 hours time along with the presentation material. Also, you can access the video recordings from the link displayed on your screen for later reference, or you can share this link with your friends or colleagues who missed to join today's session. So with that, let us begin our week 4 topic, effective fault management and IT automation. Let me quickly run through the agenda for today's session. First, we're going to discuss about the various alarm severity levels available in OpManager and the different kinds of severity levels that are predefined and configurable severity. We're going to discuss about that, and we're going to talk about the thresholds, how to configure thresholds for the key performance metrics so that when it deviates from the configured threshold value, OpManager generates an alarm for you. And in other alarms, we're going to discuss about the VMware events, event logs, SNMP traps, and Syslog from the Unix devices. And then once receiving the alert, once OpManager identifies the fault, we're going to discuss what are all the different ways that you can be notified. So whether it is an email or SMS or logs a ticket to your help desk portal. And we're going to take some remediate actions, and we're going to see how IT workflow is going to help us to create an flow to fix the errors automatically. And also we have a panelist team sitting here next to me who is ready to answer all your questions then and there. So during the course of training, if you have any questions, I encourage you to post that in the webinar chat panel, and our panelist team can answer your questions then and there. And also, one of our expert will do a question and answer session after this training session. So he's going to validate all the questions that we will receive in today's session, and is going to discuss about the top 10 questions in the last 15 minutes for the benefit of the larger audience. And let's begin with our alarm severity levels. So these are all the various alarm severity levels available in OpManager. So whenever the device goes down, it is going to raise an attention alarm, which is the least severity alarm available in OpManager. And the next medium alarm is trouble. So, but this in case of interfaces, that's going to be critical. But that is the only status of the alarms going to be triggered for interfaces, and it's going to create a critical alarm for any highest problems, and service down and pink color, and any alarm that is cleared at any stage is going to alert that in green color status. And as I said, we're going to talk about the two kinds of severity levels available in OpManager. So one is the predefined one. So for the devices down, so whenever you add any devices in OpManager, and if it is not pingable, if it is not reachable from the OpManager server, OpManager is going to consider that device as down, and it is going to trigger an alarm for you. For the device misses one pole, it is going to trigger an attention alarm, and if probably the device misses 3 poles, it is going to raise a trouble alarm, and for 5 poles or more than that, it is going to trigger a critical alarm for you. And you do not need to do any configuration. As long as the device is added and it is not reachable, it is going to trigger this alarm for you. And similarly for interfaces, whenever it goes down, it is going to create or trigger interface down alarm for you. So you don't need to do any additional configuration. And why I'm saying this severity is predefined, you cannot change the color code or the severity levels for this. So all these are predefined. And also for service down, process down, and URL down, it is going to trigger alarms as and when it goes down. And there are certain severity levels that are configurable, say for the event logs, or for SNMP trap, and for Syslogs. So all these alarm pullers, so they push the alarm to OpManager server, and there are chances that it can trigger an alarm saying, say, let me show that from the event viewer. So from this system, so you see this particular alarm is showing as information. So according to the system, according to the server, it is information. But if you consider this as a critical alarm and you want to change the status in OpManager, when you create an event log, you always have an option to convert that. Say if it is going to raise an information alarm, and if it is critical for you, you want to change the status of the severity, you can change it whenever you create the particular event log or the SNMP trap or the Syslog. So that's the difference between the predefined and the configurable severity levels. And next, we're going to talk about the thresholds. So thresholds are configured for proactive network monitoring, and once the device is added to OpManager and all the key performance metrics are associated with the devices, the only additional configuration that you need to do on the devices to monitor the performance is you need to configure the threshold for the key performance metrics. So, and you can configure the thresholds in multi-levels, say for attention, trouble, and critical, so that you're notified about the problem at various levels. So let me quickly take you through the product. So you go to settings and you see device template. And these are all the list of predefined device templates available in OpManager. Let me pick this for example. See how OpManager classifies a device into the specific model is using this device identifier, which is the heart of the device template. So on matching this device identifier, it is going to associate the device template type as Windows 2008 R2 and the vendor as Microsoft and the category as server. And once it is done, so you see that from the template, it is going to associate all these performance metrics available in OpManager. And this is how it is. So when you discover the respective device, let me close this and show you an example of a device snapshot page. So I can navigate to the respective devices from here. Let's say I'm going to pick this example, and under the monitor section I can see that various devices, various performance metrics being associated to this device. So as long as it is associated to the template, it is added to the device as and when the device is scanned in the OpManager tool. And all you need to do is update the threshold values for the respective performance metrics. And you can configure the attention level, trouble level. So you can configure the 3 levels of severity so that you're notified about the problem at various levels. And configuring consecutive times. You're wondering what is consecutive times? Say you're running an antivirus scan on a Friday evening, and at that time the CPU might go up, and it is normal for you. So you do not want to receive alarms for such action, and you can increase the consecutive times to 2 or 3, so depending upon the monitoring interval. So you can avoid an unnecessary spike being converted as or triggered as alarm in OpManager for you. If you know that this is a regular habit of the server on a Friday evening, and you can configure the consecutive values so that you can ignore the alarms for a sudden spike. And next, you can configure rearm value to clear fault alarms. So rearm value is used to clear the alarm. Say you receive a critical alarm when the CPU goes beyond 80% and suddenly it jumps back to 50, less than 50%, and you want to see that as a clear alarm so that you can ignore the previous alarm created. Then you can configure the rearm value so that it triggers a critical alarm when it goes beyond 80, and whenever it goes below 50, it is going to automatically clear the alarm for you, and you're not going to see this at all. And we just saw how to apply the thresholds for an individual device. And if you wanted to do this for a group of devices, I would suggest you to do this from the device template. So the device templates, it's going to list all the number of associated devices for you. So in this case, we just have 9 devices under the Windows 2008 R2. Let's say you have 150 or 200 devices, and in that case, it is a painful job for you to do all these configurations manually for all the 150 servers, and you simply modify the thresholds for whichever the monitor that you want. And once you update the thresholds, just click OK, and from the template you can simply click on Save and Associate. So this is going to bring another pop-up for me with a list of devices that are already associated. And if I wanted to add more, I can just select and move it to the right side box, and I can simply click on Associate. So all the changes will be applied to the 150 servers in just one click. So this is what we saw right now. And next we are going to talk about the VMware events. The VMware events, say you wanted to monitor or you wanted to get an alarm triggered for inventory changes like vMotion. So when the vMotion happens, the guest VM will move from one ESX server to another host. So in that case, you want to capture that event, and you want OpManager to trigger an alarm for that. You can configure that in OpManager. And not only for that, when a host is added or removed, when a host or VMs connected or disconnected, when the VMs powered on or powered off, when it goes to off-on state, or when any scheduled task is removed. And similarly, you have many events available. So you go to settings, and under the monitoring, you have VMware events. And see, these are all the default set of VMware events that's been added in the product. But if you wanted to add more events, all you need to do is you just need to query that from the vCenter server or the ESX host. So from the VMware events page, you just need to click on add and query the ESX host or the vCenter. And previously we just saw 35 showing from the VMware list, and right now you'll be able to see it has discovered close to 400 VMware events, and you wish to add some more event to this VMware events list, just click on add, and that is all you need to do to discover more VMware events, and if you want this to be applied to the devices, then you just select the respective event and just click on associate, and it is going to list all the available devices. You want that to apply to the respective devices, you just select and move that to the right side box and click associate, so that the newly added event are associated to the respective device. So whenever such event happens, and it is going to trigger an alarm for the respective device. And next we are going to talk about the event log alarms. So once when the devices are added to the tool, it doesn't mean that it also monitors the event log. There is an additional configuration that you need to do in order to monitor the event logs from the Windows servers. And the prerequisites are, you need to check if the WMI and RPC services are enabled on the Windows servers, and the respective servers are configured with the authenticated the WMI credentials for the respective device. And also you have to make sure that the respective ports, WMI ports 135 and 445, and the random ports between 5000 and 6000 are open in the firewall, so that you will not have any trouble monitoring the Windows event logs. And first I'm going to show you how to configure event logs for a Windows server. So let me go to inventory page. I'll pick OPM vals 17 for example, and you go to monitoring section, and under monitors you have event logs, and right now there are no event logs available for this particular device. You just need to associate the monitors, and here it is going to list all the all the event logs available from different categories like directory service, file replication service, application. You see any application failure here. In case if you wanted to see an alarm only for you do not want to monitor specific application failure, and any application failure is important for you, you can simply select this option, so that any application event failure that gets logged in the event viewer will also be triggered as an alarm for this particular device. And that is it. So from here on, this particular OPM val 7 device is going to monitor any application failure, and it is going to trigger an alarm for you. Next we have is ignoring a specific event log from a Windows server. Say in the similar case, let's say I have selected associated any security failure option here. Let's say from the security option I have selected any security failure, and I have updated. Go to the next page. Still I don't find it. Okay. Alright, so let's say I have associated any security failure for this particular device, and when I go to security section, I also see audit success alarms. But I'm not interested to monitor the audit success alarms for the category special logon. So how do I ignore that? I wanted to monitor any security events, but still the audit success events for the special logon is not important to me, and I need to ignore that. How do I do that? So you go to settings, and under the monitoring, go to event log rules. You can add a new rule, select security, and say audit success special logon, and I need to know the event ID, source, and category. Let me copy the event ID. I need to know the source. That, update the source, and copy the category, put it here, And then you can update the user, and for the description match text, we also support the regular expression. If you want to use that, you can use it. And the event type is audit success, so I'll select audit success. And for this particular event, I'm trying to ignore this event. So I received thousands of events on this particular server, so I simply wanted to ignore that, and I save it. So now if I go to the respective device and associate this particular event log, so this is the one that I had created right now. So I simply associate that, and from here on this particular event log will be ignored. So before I was receiving thousands of events from this particular ID alone. So I simply wanted to ignore that because it is not important to me. This is how you can do this when you have a similar requirement. Let me take you to the product slides. Okay, and then how do you know if you wanted to create a custom event logs? Say by default it is going to pull out the category from application, security, setup, systems, and so on. But you will also be having a custom logs created. Say there are under the application and service category, there are a separate folder for Kaspersky, Internet Explorer, and you have some custom views. So if you wanted to bring that and add a custom event log in OpManager, it is possible. Again, from the settings, event log rules, you have an option to add a custom event log. So just query the respective device. Okay, right now there is no custom event log in the last 30 minutes, but if any event logs under the specific categories identified, it's going to list that in the drop down for you. So you can select that and add that as a custom category, custom event logs that you wish to monitor for the specific devices. And that is all about event logs, and let's go and discuss about the SNMP trap alarms. So SNMP trap, the only configuration that you need to do in order to monitor the SNMP traps in OpManager are, so first make sure that all the network devices are configured to send the SNMP traps to OpManager server, and how OpManager reads that as an alert all the events and trigger a meaningful alarm in OpManager for you is using the MIB file. So some of the MIB files and some of the rules are already pre-configured in OpManager for you. So by validating that, the trap rules, it receives the respective trap and trigger a meaningful alarm for you in OpManager. And these are all the 5 things that you should know about SNMP traps in OpManager. So we're going to discuss about the unsolicited traps, loading traps from the MIB files, filtering trap messages, customizing trap messages, and forwarding trap messages to another NMS platform. So we are going to talk about each of these cases in detail. First, I'm going to talk about the unsolicited traps. So here is a use case. I have configured a router to forward SNMP traps to OpManager server. However, I don't get to see an alarm. How do I fix this? So what are the things to verify? First, check whether the respective router is added to OpManager or not. So we need to know the source, only then we can monitor the trap messages from the respective devices. Next, you need to verify whether the trap rule is defined in OpManager or not. So you go to settings and under the monitoring SNMP trap processor. So these are all the predefined trap rules that are available. But if the respective device is not having the respective category or the respective trap rule is already predefined in OpManager, then that particular alarm will not be generated in OpManager for you. So what you need to do is you need to check, say the router is added and the trap rule is not defined, then the only place that you need to check to identify the trap is from the unsolicited traps. I will navigate and show you where it is available, and the solution is identify the event from the unsolicited traps and add a new trap rule. So all you need to do is simply go to alarms, and you see unsolicited traps, and this is where you will identify the traps for which the trap rule is not defined. And you wanted to create a trap processor. It is a simple process to do that. From here you simply click on create trap processor, and you define a name, and you simply save it. So this gets added to the trap processor rule. So SNMP trap test that we had previously, we did not see the trap rule for this. We just simply created from the unsolicited traps. But it is not a feasible solution for me to do this for multiple devices, or say particular device is generating a lot of SNMP trap, and it is not feasible for me to do that. So how do I import all these trap rules? Is there a simple way to do this? I don't want to manually add the trap rules one by one. So how do I upload the trap rules in a bulk? This is where you need to use the MIB files. So you need to have the vendor MIPS. Maybe you're doing this for a Cisco router, then you need to have the vendor MIPS for the specific Cisco model. And what is a MIP file? That contains all the respective trap OIDs in it and the performance metrics OIDs in it. So you can get this from the vendor, or you have sites like oidview.com have a lot of MIP files for various vendors available. You can download one from there, and you simply need to upload that in OpManager. If you have direct access to the server, you simply go to the OpManager folder. Simply go to OpManager folder, and under OpManager folder, you have MIPS folder. You simply copy all the MIB files here, and that is all you need to do. In case if you do not have access to the MIP browser, to the product, then you go to MIP browser and you simply upload the MIB files here. And let me show you an example of how to upload the so I have uploaded the MIB file in OpManager. So how to extract the trap rules by loading the MIB files in the OpManager tool. So it's straightforward. Go to settings, and under the settings you see SNMP trap processor. So here just load the MIPS. This is the MIP I'm trying to load. It is a little slow, please excuse me for that. Let me try again. Okay, I think I got a problem here. It's not loading up. But this is how it is. You just select the MIB file, and it is going to list all the trap rules, trap OIDs that are available from the respective MIB file. And once that is done, you can just simply select and upload the respective MIB file, the respective trap rules in the OpManager tool. And once that is done, it is going to list all the trap rules here. So you're going to save a lot of time by importing the SNMP trap rules from the MIB files. And next, I'm going to talk about filtering the trap messages. So I have configured the trap rules. I've started receiving a lot of trap messages, but certain trap messages are giving a lot of information. So I wanted to filter that. to see only the relevant trap rule that I wanted to monitor in OpManager. So how do I do that? I have a Windows server added to OpManager. It triggers hundreds of trap events with various messages from XOID. However, I want to filter the trap event only if the priority is critical and clear the event automatically when the priority is low. So how do I achieve this? So you need to filter that based on the warbinds. Warbinds are nothing but the variables of the trap messages, and how do you categorize or how do you identify the warbind, which I will show that as an example. And you're going to use match criteria in the respective trap rule to filter out the messages based on the warbinds. So I will show you an example. So see, in this example, you see the exact trap message that we received from the device, and I have highlighted the warbinds in blue color and the warbinds value in the yellow color. So the warbinds value that starts with 0. So from here the warbind starts, the variable bindings. So from here is what the warbind starts. So the value for warbind 0 is this, value for warbind 1 is this, and in my example I'm going to look only for this. So it is the trap message from the same OID, but in one case, in one example, I see the priority as critical. In another example, I see the priority as major, and in another example, I see the severity as medium, and finally, I see the severity as low. So one trap ID that sends out different messages with different priority levels. But in my case, I wanted to monitor only when the priority is critical, and I want to clear the alarm when the priority is low. So in this case, I'm going to ignore when the priority is major or when the priority is medium. So how do I do that in OpManager? Go to, so let me edit any one of the trap rule. Give me some time, I think. Okay, so I edit one trap rule, and you see match criteria. Here I saw the fifth warbind, if that is equal to critical. Let me note this one, and in the rearm criteria, I'm again selecting the fifth warbind. So I'm selecting this as low. So when I configure this, so what it is going to do is, whenever it identifies, it receives the trap messages from the respective OID, it is going to filter out and alert me only if the priority is critical, and it is going to clear the alarm if the priority is low on the fifth warbind. So this is how you can use the match criteria to filter out and trigger alarms only for the relevant trap. And next, we're going to talk about customizing the trap messages. So now I know how to filter out and see only the valid trap that I wanted to monitor from the respective device. But in this case, you see this particular trap event that is showing a lot of information in the trap message for me. But how do I customize to show or display only the message that I want to see? So again, what you need to do is, let me pick up an example, and from the messages, you see the authentication failure trap is received from so and so OID, and after this, it is going to display all the warbinds for you. If you say $, it is going to bring in all the messages for you. Say you wanted to see only the warbind 1 value and warbind 5 value, so just add a comma and $5. So this is going to print only the value of the warbind 1 and warbind 5. So as you see, it is configured to display the messages only from of value warbind 1 and warbind 3. So, and you see These are all the same trap messages, but when it is $* it's displaying all the information, and when it is $1 and $3, it is displaying only the variable value of variable 1 and variable 3. This is how you customize the message to display only the relevant information that you want to see from the trap message. So next, we're going to talk about how to forward the trap messages to another destination. So from the same trap page, you have forward trap, and you simply add the destination. And if I wanted to forward this in 162 port, I simply add it. So now all the trap messages that I receive in OpManager will be forwarded to the so-and-so destination. And once you do that, you just hit on Start Forwarder to forward the trap messages to another destination. And another point we see here is converting the alerts received in OpManager into a trap alert. It's again a simple process. See, I'm monitoring various devices in OpManager, and whenever I see an alarm in OpManager for a service down, or whether it is for URL down, or for any particular event, and I want this to be forwarded as a trap to another destination, and here is what you need to add: a notification profile for the trap. Just select the trap profile. Here you need to add the same destination that you wanted to forward, and you just need to add the port, and you simply provide the community string, and we also support the version 2 as well. Once you provide that and hit next, it is going to ask you to provide or select the categories for which you wanted to forward the trap to. So I wanted to forward the trap when the devices are missing one port. So I select that and I go next. In the next stage, I just going to select the devices for which you need to apply. Next, I will schedule and save it. And next, we are going to talk about the Syslog alarms. So configuring the devices to forward Syslog events to OpManager server is what the prerequisites. So you need to make sure that the devices are configured to forward the Syslogs to OpManager server, and it receives the Syslog in 514 and 519 port. And you wanted to configure an additional port for this, you can do that. So under the settings, Syslog rules. So this is where you see all the Syslog rules, predefined the Syslog rules added in OpManager, and you wanted to configure a port. So with the comma separated value, you can put in the port, the additional ports, and creating a Syslog rule. So all the predefined rules are available here. It's going to trigger a meaningful alarm only for the Syslog messages that matches the predefined rules. Else you need to create a new log, and you can use the facility and severity to filter out the messages. And under the match text, we also support the regular expression, so you can use various conditions to filter out the messages from the description. And you're wondering, how do I identify the facility of the respective event, or how do I know what is the severity? It is very simple. So we have a tool in OpManager to the Syslog receiver. So once you go here and hit on Start, whatever the devices that forwards the Syslog to OpManager server is going to bring, say, I have an example here. So this particular device is sending so-and-so messages to OpManager server. So now I know the source, now I know the facility is kernel and the severity is emergency, and I see the message and at what time it is received. So I wanted to create a trap, the Syslog rule for this. Simply I go to Syslog rule and I click on add. So I know the facility, I know the severity is emergency, so I just put in a name and add the Syslog rule. That's how you add a Syslog rule in OpManager. and you wanted to know the syslog flow rate if many devices are sending in a lot of syslogs, and you wanted to wondering if that is going to add more load to the server, and you want to know, you can simply go to the syslog flow rate view to see how many packets are sent per second. And you wanted to forward the syslog messages to another NMS tool. Simple process again. Just add the source, the destination host, and the destination port, and then once you start, and it will forward the syslog messages received in OpManager to the desired destination. And next we have this notification profile. Now we discussed enough about the fault being identified by OpManager, and here in notification profile there are various profile types available. So depending upon your need, you can add whether an email or SMS profile, or a run a command profile, or you wanted to log a ticket in the help desk tool. If you have Service Desk Plus, you can integrate OpManager with Service Desk Plus and associate that profile to the respective devices, so that when a problem is identified, it is going to trigger a ticket, log a ticket in the help desk portal for you. And this is the flow. Once you create your respective notification profile, then you're going to associate that to the respective criteria. So you want to whether configure this for missed polls, or hardware conditions, or threshold violation, or service down, whatever it is, and then you will associate to the devices, and you can associate that to the individual devices, or based on the category, whether it is server or router or switches, or you have a predefined business view groups. You can also associate that with the business view group. And then finally you're going to add a time window, and just going to review that and save and execute it. So let's say I want to receive an email notification for all service down alarms. How do I configure this? First, you need to make sure that you configure the mail server settings, and then you need to create a profile to associate the respective alarm criteria to the devices. So under the basic settings, so you just need to make sure that the SNMP, the mail server settings are configured first, and once that is done, the next job is to add a notification profile. So I want to add a notification profile for email. I will just configure the respective details. Then I click on next to select the alarm criteria for the service down alarms. So that's what use case says. And then I click on next, and I associate this to the devices. So I want to associate this to server category, and I schedule this all time, and I just provide a name, save it. And that is it. So from all the servers, whenever it receives a service down alarm, it is going to send an email to the configured email address. And next we have is the integration with Service Desk Plus. I want OpManager to create a ticket in Service Desk Plus whenever a problem is detected in the interface. The ticket should have the fields like category, group, and technician field automatically. So first you need to do is you need to set up the integration with Service Desk Plus, and then again the same process for creating a notification profile. So you go to settings, and under the basic settings you have add-on or product settings. Here is where you need to configure the integration between Service Desk Plus, and you provide the server details and the technician key that you need to copy from the Service Desk Plus. Once you log in as the respective user, you just create the API generation key. It's a very simple process, and I just regenerate. I copy the key, go to OpManager again, and then I paste the technician key for the user administrator, and I can define I can choose whether the ticket should reopen or create a new ticket if it reoccurs, and I want the assets available in OpManager need to be synced with Service Desk Plus. I can define that, merge OpManager asset details with STP, and I can also configure the auto sync. So whenever a new device is added to OpManager later date, will also be synced with Service Desk Plus. Once this is done, I can click on sync now to sync the assets, or I can just click on save to complete the integration. So now the integration is successfully done. So all I have to do is go to settings, notification profile, and when I click on add, there are various profiles available, and I want a logotical profile to be created, and I can actually define the category, the subcategory, the item or priority. I can predefine all these items here, and so when I click on next, the same process again. So let me associate this for device missed polls, and I can associate this to business view groups or to the individual devices that I pick from this list, and then I apply this to all the time. Log ticket example. When I save this, and all the devices that's been associated with this log ticket profile, whenever it identifies the fault with devices missing one pole, it is going to trigger and ticket in the Service Desk Plus tool for you. So you will see all the tickets that's been generated here, and you go to assets, and when you sync the assets, this is where you will see all the assets available in OpManager will be synced with Service Desk Plus. And next, we're going to see how to automate fault management with IT workflow automation. And here is the simple flow. First, you need to make sure that you create a workflow to fix the problem. There are always a repeated job that you will do, a repetitive task whenever a fault is identified in OpManager, and you wanted to create a workflow for that to get that executed automatically whenever it identifies an alarm. You can do that. So simply create a workflow, associate that with the relevant devices, and then you can define whether it need to be triggered upon an event failure or whether it need to be triggered on a given time. So here is an example for freeing up disk space on the server, and I have created a workflow. So this workflow says if it checks for the free space, and if it is less than 20 GB, and it's going to affect the performance. So I wanted to increase the space on the server. So what I'm trying to do here is deleting the respective logs that I do not require, or the logs that are available for a longer period. So I want to delete that, and I'm again checking the disk size, and if it is again less than 20 GB, and repeating the process to remove the unwanted logs or unwanted files from the different location. So I will show an example from the product for you. You go to workflow. I've already created a workflow for this. So select, and whenever the particular C drive is less than 20 GB, it is going to remove the unwanted logs that are available from the MS SQL, the application logs, and then it is going to check again, and if it still sees that did not get enough space, then it is going to remove the logs from the different location. And you can repeat the process as much as possible until you gain more space on the server. And once the flow is created, just click on trigger, and here is where you can define to which devices that this particular workflow need to be associated, and you can do that based on the category, or you can pick the devices manually. And once that is done, you can decide whether this need to be executed when a particular threshold is violated. Say on a disk performance, if I see that the utilization is more than 80%, then I wanted to perform this activity, I can go by selecting the alarm trigger option. Or if I wanted to do this activity once in a month, then I can schedule this trigger. I can select monthly on a day wise on every Sunday. I need to execute this. So I just click on next and save it. And you're wondering how to create a workflow. It's a very simple process. So you click on new workflow, and you have the list of, we have more than 80 plus tasks available. So it's all going to be drag and drop and with conditions. So if it satisfies this, what I need to do. If it doesn't satisfy this, what I need to do. Say for example, I wanted to check whether the particular process is running. I can just use this test process icon, the option, and I can say I wanted to do this for SNMP on a Linux machine. So I can do that. I can test a process, and if the process is not running, then I can say start the process, and I can provide the respective command to start the process from here and save it. Test for this, and if the once it is done again, then I can again, if the to check whether the particular process is started or not. And once that is done, so on a successful note, I can also define, okay, just send an email to me when the process is successful. Just send a successful message. So I can configure this according to my requirement. It's all drag and drop, so you can pick whatever the task that works for you. And get that associated with the relevant devices. Okay, with that we are coming to the first part of the end of first part of the training sessions, and now I'm going to transfer this session to one of our technical experts, Sanjeev, who's validated the top 10 questions that we received in today's session. So he's going to discuss that with you for the benefit of the large audience. So he had included all the questions in a separate presentation. So let me refresh that so that we can get the updated questions here. Give me a quick minutes. And in the meantime, you have any questions, please post it on the webinar chat panel, and we have a panelist still available to answer all your questions then and there. Sorry, it is taking a while. All right, I think we got it. So I'm just transferring this to Sanjeev. Sanjeev, over to you.
Thanks, Suresh. Hello, everybody. This is Sanjeev, product expert and panelist from Manage Engine. So we have got some set of queries over the session that we have had today. So let's just get this reviewed one by one. How do I forward my Syslog messages to a third-party server or any server which I would like to want? So let me just change the view. We do have an option where you can actually change the horizontal vertical segment. So this is where when you actually go to the settings tab, you will have an option where you will be able to forward it. So when you go to settings and then monitoring, you have an option with the syslog rules. So select the option forward syslog and then provide the add destination rule to which the syslog has to be forwarded, and then specify the destination host as well as the destination port. Once if that is done, just enable the start forwarder option so that it will be forwarding the specific syslog messages to the third-party server. With OPM STP integration, I would like to open the existing ticket in case if the incident happens again. So let's just see how this could be done. So with OpManager integration with Service Desk Plus, there's a lot of leverage that has been taken into effect, and with the APIs that we have derived so far, the integration seemingly has become a lot easier, as well as you might have to just provide few details once when you go with this integration. So how do you do this? When you go to settings and then go to basic settings and then add on product settings, and here you will have an option where ticket reopen settings. So if alert reoccurs, create a new ticket again or reopen closed ticket. So our question was to actually reopen the same ticket if the incident happens again, time and again. So you can just select the option reopen closed ticket and then save the changes in order to take effect. Is there a way to forward the incoming traps from OpManager to a different destination IP? Yes, we do have that option. Likewise, for this Syslog, we do have an option for the traps as well. So when you go to settings and then monitoring again, and then go to SNMP trap processes, we do have an option called as the forward trap, where you will be able to add the add destination IP as well as the port number, and then proceed with the start forwarder option. So with SNMP traps, it will be using the UDP port number 162 for listening to the traps and getting into the OpManager server. We have an annoying event ID 7024 security failure that is flooding our inbox. How do I avoid this? So we have this specific user here where he's actually getting continuous set of event based alarms of a specific ID 7024, which is a security event failure. So what his question says, that is there a way to avoid this? I believe Suresh has also help you thought on how do we actually accomplish this. So when you go to settings, monitoring, and then event log rules again, you have an option called as add custom event log rule. Let's just say if you actually have the event ID with you, you will have to just go forward and then provide the event ID. So and then you have a rule which will actually say if incoming event matches criteria, alert with severity as. Just specify what are the options that you have, and in this case, since it is actually triggering the flood of alarms to his inbox, you can just go forward and then select the option as ignore the event and then save the changes. So that will help him to derive not to send any flurry of event log alarms to his inbox. We certainly know that of a VM migration sequence that is planned every weekend. How do I receive this as an email alert? Well, that's where the notification profile comes into the picture. So when you go to settings and then go to notifications, you have this list of profiles that has already been associated with. So just make a remembrance to enable this option under the edit criteria. So when you go to the edit criteria option, you have an option below which will actually say when any of the virtual devices has a problem. So under this you will have additions based on the general alarms, which will be based on VM's failover or VM reallocation or VM migration sequence, and the virtual device performance alarms as well. So make sure that you save these changes and then associate it to the device that you wanted. And once if that is done, you will be receiving those migration sequence mails. I failed to identify one of my critical alarm and it created a huge problem. Is there a way to escalate this until the alarm has been acknowledged? So yes, this is where the alarm escalation rule comes into the picture. A lot of scenarios where we see is that if the management feels that there is something that needs to be identified, and if in case if they don't see that happening, then there's something that which needs to be escalated. So in this case, you go to the settings and then configuration again, and there is a specific option called as an alarm escalation rule. So these will define the set of rules that you wanted, and you can also add a rule with the rule name as well as with the alarm severity. Now when he says severity, it's going to be critical, so you'll have to select the severity as critical, and then with the category or with any defined business views that you have created, and then a check which would say to run it for every X number of minutes, and then specify to notify it as an email, or you can also specify the email address to which the management wants until it's been acknowledged or resolved by any of the colleagues or teammates inside. So this is a better way of handling things rather than to see if there is something that you haven't been identifying and then ignoring it for a while. So alarm escalation would definitely help in this case. I would like to automate the process of powering off my specific VMs during weekends. Is there a way to automate this? Yes, we do have an option. So likewise, when you go to the workflow, we have a specific tab which will actually talk more on the VM migration, VM reallocation or the VM failovers. So for the power of VMs, all you'll have to do is just drag and drop this and then specify what is the device name that you wanted, and then create a rule to say or enable this trigger to schedule it at a specific time frame and then to automate this specific job. So this probably is more to do with the automation what we have seen so far in this session. I wish to apply my iron port temperature only to select devices and not all of them. How do I achieve this? Yes, so let's say for example, if you go to settings and then monitoring, you have an option called as performance monitors. So let's say for example, if I search for any term called as iron port, so there you go, you have the iron port temperature. So just in case if you wish to associate it to any specific devices, you will have to just select the associate option and then select those devices and then move it to the right hand side and then click on apply and override to make the changes. So with Cisco's perspective, iron port is all about securing your gateway for effective email communication. Like it acts as a firewall for your email channels to filter and then ensuring that it hasn't been affected. So that's all about applying this iron port temperature to the selected devices. Is there a report to identify on what are the notification profiles that has been triggered during a specific time frame? Yes, let's just see. So when you go to reports, and then when you go to availability and response, or probably I think it should be somewhere in the inventory. So yes, so you will have an option which will talk more on the notification profiles applied by type and applied by device type. And then there is the notification profiles triggered as well. So this will give you the time frame on what is actually triggered, which profile has sent which message, what is the type of information, and what is the trigger time. So that is available under the system tab. So once when you go to reports and then system, you will have an option with the notification profiles triggered. What is an unsolicited traps? Well, that's basically a trap which may not have a defined meaning. So just in case if you feel that there are a lot of alarms that is flooding in the application and which the numerics, then this is what it is all about. It's the unsolicited traps. And where do I see that? When you go to alarms and then click on the events tab and then hover it to the small pane that you see here, and then you go to unsolicited traps. So these are traps which may not have a defined meaning. You would be wondering on what is this all about. So you'll have to go to this unsolicited traps again and then ensure that you are supplying the appropriate custom SNMP traps to convert that into a meaningful message. And that's it for today. So just in case if you have any queries, we are always here to help you out. And these are the channels through which we'll be able to support you. We have the YouTube where there are a lot of OpManager technical videos that is into the foray. And then you have the help document, of course. We also do communicate a lot of active user interactions through the forums page. And if in case if you feel you wanted to send an email, you can also do this from sales@ManageEngine for any sales query. Or if you are trying to evaluate the product, then it should be the eval-item. And for the support, it should be opmanager-support@manageengine.com. And these are the numbers directly through which you can actually reach us. So our next training schedule is on October 24th, which is at 6:30 a.m. GMT, covering the following zones. And it would be all about the effective fault management and IT automation. And if you're probably traveling across through the US, then you also have the seminar that is happening this November 13th in New York and the one at Orlando, Florida. So we are probably covering a few of the other zones as well, which we'll be letting know through the series of these sessions. We would like to thank you one and all again for spending your time, and I believe that this session was more intuitive as well as very informative. Thanks again, and have a great day.